Hey, good afternoon. How is everybody?
Great.
Everybody doing all right?
Yep.
Everybody slide today or not everybody slide today?
Yep.
Yeah. Not there? Pretty good snow. Hard to see though, eh? That cloud comes around, all of a sudden you're like... Anyway, my name is Dusty Dyer. I am born and raised in Colorado. I live in Crested Butte. This is my first term on the national team. I'm on the Alpine side. I have a good bit of experience with teaching materials and things. I did my education. I went to college to become an educator. I got my Colorado teaching license when I came out of college for secondary art and PE. But what we're going to do today is have a bit of a conversation, I think, as opposed to me just telling you all these things. Because we're going to work on a conversation. I'm going to go through some of the stuff. Once we get into the fundamentals, we'll develop those a little bit. And then we're going to move into some other stuff of what else came out of InterSki. What are some of the teaching ideas? And I'm going to try to keep it teaching based. And what are some of the other teaching ideas that I saw as I was there? A little background for those. Who here has been doing InterSki? Wow, pretty good. Right? So those who have been doing InterSki know this, but while you're there at InterSki, my job was to gather information. So I went from country to country to country, and I took notes like mad all the time. And it's interesting because you spend a lot of time trying to sift through presentation to understand the content. And it's an interesting piece that how it works. And in our country, we're set up that we work as presenters. As we teach people, we get used to making that connection, talking to people, and forming lessons for people. At InterSki, a lot of the people sharing are education researchers, and so like that. And so their presentation skills aren't always super dialed, but they have great information. And so you guys, you got to kind of self-check yourself a little bit to get past the, like, we're not really bonding here, but I need to figure out what you're trying to say. But that was a piece I found really interesting as we got to InterSki. So when I get into some of this information, I'm still learning it myself. And so I'm working on trying to have a more solid handle on that. And as we go through it, you can see it, but you can grasp the more global concept. And hopefully there'll be some interesting pieces that you can possibly take back to your home mountains. Some things that you can do for yourselves. So with that, with the teaching fundamentals, it came out with, and I might blaze through a couple of these slides. This will be the actual slides that we had in Colorado. But the question is, what makes a great instructor? And this is the answer that our nation is currently believing in right now. When you combine these pieces to understand your student, it helps shape your decisions and behaviors that as you relate with your students, right? This is multifaceted when you look at this. It's this little image right here. It can be more than what do you have as an instructor, but it's what do they have as a student as well. Look at the technical pieces. What can they do? What do they know? What are their understandings of the sport? What are their physical abilities? How do they ski, ride, telemark, or whatever that may be? And then when you move over here is people skills. How does that student in front of you communicate? What do they do to relate with other people? How old are they? How developed are they? Are you dealing with a young child who you have to take in some different special considerations on how they're going to deal with you? And then on the same side of the teaching skill side is how do they learn? Well, what are the ways that this person in front of you can learn different understandings, can learn different movements, can change your behavior or get to an outcome? So that helps you identify who the student is. And then on the other side of that is your technical skills. What do you know about this craft? How it works? How everything relates together? Your movement analysis ability to be able to observe accurately and prescribe for that. What are your abilities to build an environment for the student in front of you and make that learning environment accurate so it's guest-centered, right? We've been guest-centered for the length of all my life, actually. And Down here in people skills. How do I manage myself when I'm in an environment that I might be more intimidating? Right? Public speaking, intimidating. Am I holding it in together or am I freaking out inside? Actually both right now. But, so how do you do that? How do I look at this group? And do I see that guy in the back corner up there just like, poof, head hits the wall and he's out? I'm like, okay, am I okay with that one? But how many more do I let happen before I do something different to adjust to manage this group, right? You know, how do I do that? And then my communication. The things that Ann talked about last night, who saw that, you know, am I making eye contact? Am I doing those prescriptive things that I know that I can check off my head in order to help meet the outcome of keeping you all engaged? Right? And then, so those are things that we do, and when we put those together with our, our behaviors and decisions they make, that's what we think is great instruction right now. That's where we're at. And that's the dusty version that you guys just got. So, oh, we have a guy, we don't need to listen to him. And then, so then what we did is we broken this down is like, so we're pretty good with technical skills. That's easy break off. We can make those break off pretty good, like I get that. And I think that's a pretty black and white line that we can draw. But when we get down here to these teaching and people skills side, as you heard last night, we spent some time like, this is really important, and we want to make this a distinction because we want to help people be better at this. We want to get past the statement of hire the smile, train the feet. Right? Has anybody in here ever heard that? Really? None yet? Oh, okay, nice, I got one. What that means is I'm going to hire a great personality. I'm going to hire somebody who makes great connections with people and is really is going to be a great person on my staff as a train manager and a person who helps direct the ski school. I want them to make great connections. I want them to build a relationship with the people they meet so those people continue coming back. And I can have a continuous search, right? And so I'm hiring that smile. That's what I call the smile. And I can teach them to ski and snowboard. That's easy. That's moving out. So that's repeating. That's getting them to just go out there and they can start at lower levels and they get better as they go. And the longer they're there, the better they get, right? But I think we're seeing a little bit of a sway in our country a little bit as we're getting a lot of smiles, but we're losing a little bit of the technical aspect on that. And so how do I get somebody who's a great skier and you're not a complete jerk, but you're a little rough, right? You're a little bit hard to get along with, or you have some quirks about you that hard to put a finger on. Those are the people who are like, well, how can I help that person be on the staff? How can I help that person do this profession? What are some things I can do? And we look at it like, it's here. This is that piece, and I guess it's on that side. It's how do we get that person to, all right, you're a great skier. Here's your opportunity for change. Here's the opportunities you have. Like you can give a little more empathy to people around you. If somebody's having a hard day, you can be like, ha, that's right, this is my town. No. Go ahead and help them out. Help people carry their skis. Show that you can get outside of yourself. Maybe a little less selfish, maybe a little more caring for others around you. Whatever it might be. I want an opportunity to be able to train that. And that's what led to this division. This is one of the things I think that led to that division of people and teaching skills. Because I've seen a lot of things out there of technical and communication pieces, right? Like how are you balancing your hard and soft skills? But there's a little piece in there, it's like, is that complete enough? And it brought us to this. So, as we did it, for those who heard that, this is sort of one of the key points I really want you to understand, is we had to frame it. Because it was really difficult for us to be like, this is what a great instructor does. This is great lesson environment building. And it always included some part of like a relationship to do this, you'll see it again, collaboration to do that. Well, you can't collaborate if you don't communicate. And so if you don't communicate, that's people skill side, right? And so we have to frame it, and we're like, okay, as we frame this, we have, what are we doing that connects me with each one of you? What are the people skills that I can develop that at a personal level? creates relationship, builds rapport, has empathy, has a self-awareness, has social awareness, and an ability to manage that. That's what we did to frame that, to help us be like, okay, according to that frame, these things fit in this category. And then the other frame we came up with, I think it's next, I don't even know. Oh yeah, it's coming up, great. Is this one. To focus on what are teaching fundamentals. And if you want, you can use a different word here. Because teaching is what we do. It's the whole environment. But if you can, you can maybe put a little different word in there that's like lesson environment or learning or maybe a little bit of pedagogy in that. But it's a hard one for us to put a finger on, so we're using teaching right now. And that's where we're at, and it's teaching skills that represent the instructor, and it's, what does the instructor do? What are the actions? Does it say, oh good, it does say actions. What are the actions you do to help somebody learn and help them to be in that environment of learning? Right? And so what it is you're going to show us that? Oh, yes it is. So what are those actions that connect that learner, each one of you, to the environment? So how are you in this environment? And that's one of the things I really want you to take away with. We said it a couple times last night, and I thought it was really important for us to share here. All right? I went through this. These are some things that, as the group is brainstorming about stuff, what are the pieces that you look at, that we got? And there's some of the separation that we're feeling are leading to the instructor or leading the instructor to the environment. Cruise to this guy. Right, and so that gets us to this. Right? The people skill stuff that I think Ann did yesterday, she probably spent a bit of time in this zone, developing each one of those. And let's spend a little bit of time developing each one of these. Right? And I'm gonna get into each one of those a little more specific as I break them down. And shared this last night as well. As when we get that and we get into teaching skills, we see, this is after we developed it, we kind of get the realization like, hey, these things kind of live in two different areas. There's things that we do that truly create learning. So even without an instructor, learning would occur. And then there's some actions that we do that are what we do that help that person be in that environment so they can learn. Right, so you have the facilitating learning and connecting students to the process. So when we facilitate learning, these are things we do, right? This makes learning happen, right? When you explore, experiment, and play in pretty much anything, you'll make a change. Look at the animal world. Watch how they, as cubs, so let's say like a lion cub, is romping around and playing with some, like an ant pile or whatever, it's going to learn, right? It's learning how to move, it's learning how to do stuff, and when it gets bit in the foot, it's going to know if those ants hurt. It might not need to stir up the ant pile, right? So through its play, it learns. And as it plays, some form of reflection happens to make a recognition, and they recognize a change or a difference that needs to occur. And then the other part is this reinforced effort learning. This one is a little bit more gray. It has a piece where you're involved because something on the outside helps the learner know that something happened that's a desirable piece. So when you're out there teaching skiing and you're really trying to get somebody to, let's say, balance on the outside foot. And most of the time they move their body inside very quickly and they end up on the inside foot for most of the turn. Then suddenly something happens, you have to drag a pole or do something and they're on that and they align themselves to the outside ski through most of the turn. And they're like, is that it? Is that what you're doing? They're still searching because their muscle, their proprioceptive senses haven't given them that information that that's the right movement yet. So we need to make sure we anchor that for them. And that's another piece that helps them recognize what's happening. So we have some learning that's occurring. Right? Does that make sense? You guys okay with this quick through so far? Yeah. Good? So we're going to skip that. Oh, right, isn't that the best show ever? A cute little girl and her happy big smile. We'll come back to it later. Depends on how short of me. So then we have stuff that that brings facility. No, where are we at? No, I went the wrong way. Sorry. There we go. Connecting learning to the process. So here, right? We talked about it's really hard to get rid of those people skills piece. To collaborate. Because really, for a learner, whoa, no, I did it again. Wrong button. In order for a learner to, one of the long ways away, to be part of the process, really, there just has to be an objective or a goal. We don't have to collaborate on that, but in order for them to have investment and being more engaged, we say we want you to. We want you to make sure that you're making that happen. But I can go and I can choose to watch somebody ski down and let them know, like, hey, here's what you should work on and you should go do this. And I can probably ask them to do movements, and if they choose to, go through some skills, we can probably make a change, even though that might not be what they want. That makes sense. Less ideal. So make sure you're collaborating on objectives and long-term goals, because that will help create an environment that they want to be more part of. Then we manage the train, pacing, information, and activities. For today, got to ski in the cloud. My whole group went down the big sea in the cloud. And they came down like, no! Right? Because they couldn't see. You could only go 2 at a time, so I couldn't guide them through. They had to go on their own with their partner and go through. So talk about a great reciprocal process I worked on today. It was 3 pairs on their own into the big sea for the first time ever for all of them. Clouds, they couldn't know where they were going. So it was a really neat thing. I was managing the train we went to. The pacing was dictated by their ski patrol. The information I gave them and the activity I'll share with you. The information I gave them is we talked about tactics. What tactics might we use in a low light, hard to see scenario in a steep zone that if you fall, luckily the snow's pretty soft, I wasn't worried about any slides today, but you could fall and go for 10 feet maybe 10, 20. I wasn't worried about anybody going top to bottom like last year. We had a couple. But so the information I gave them was both focused on tactics, because I wanted their bandwidth to be able to manage where they were at and not be too consumed with like, oh, I gotta make sure that pinky toe rolls over when I start this turn, and then all of a sudden I hang up and now I'm like high-sided and start tomahawking down here. We don't want that to happen, right? That's one of those things that we look at. And then the activity, with the tactics, the activity was to complete the cool-off. That was our activity. That was what we did. That was our learning piece. And what I wanted them to learn from that was not a technical, how are you skiing better? I wanted them to learn some confidence, and I wanted them to learn some emotional security. I can do this, I went through it, and I'm okay. Right? And so the information I gave them, I hope, helped them be in a zone where they could manage that, and when they got to the bottom, they're all wound up and excited, and their adrenaline was pumping. And we definitely pushed their thrill down here, this physical risk piece. We pushed it up pretty high, and we put them right on that edge so that they were on the verge of afraid, and probably even a few turns were afraid. Like, oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work, Did anybody in the cloud make a turn in the cloud where all of a sudden you dropped it like even 3 inches farther than you thought, and your heart like blew into your throat? Oh my gosh, that's not okay feeling. They had a bunch of those. That's what their fear is, and they had to recover for a few turns. And after they recovered for a few turns, they could get back into like, okay, I'm skiing. I'm linking one turn into the next, and I'm getting down this hill. And then a lot of selfies happened because they're like, I'm so proud of me, yes! And they're documenting it, and they had a sense of accomplishment. And so through the day, and that's what we worked through. And so the other part of this emotional risk that we manage as instructors is it a safe environment for me to be me? Can I come into your class and share my thoughts, be myself, and I know that you're gonna hold that part of me that I shared with you, a little bit of my vulnerability? Is that okay? Because if you're students aren't willing to be vulnerable with you, they won't try. And if they don't try, the change is going to be very, very small. Does that make sense? And so we want to make sure that in this learning environment that there's a sense that it's okay for me to try stuff. They're going to help. If I come down here and I accidentally stumble and fall down and hit the snow, unless you're with me, everybody else, we'll probably see if you're okay and check and make sure things are good. I'll probably start laughing first and then see if you're okay. But so that's part of the emotional risk. And there's more to that in the emotional risk part, is this emotional and physical risk blend together. Because I think fear, correct me, is fear's emotion, right? So fear, when we hit fear, when our physical risk gets high enough, we hit fear. And when fear comes in, we're no longer, that blends that physical risk created an emotion. That emotion then is going to affect my ability to move. I wonder if I have that slide, sorry. I have one of the interski groups did a lot of talk about that, the Amala hijack, Abdullah, because it's not the Abdullah oblongata, but it's the Abdullah hijack, or something like that's a big word. But essentially one of the parts of your brain, the fight or flight part of your brain, kicks in and it makes decisions for you and you don't get to be in control anymore. So if your fear gets too big, and if my group, if I thought in this zone, if that would take over, I wouldn't let them go there. Because if they couldn't make the moves they needed to make to get down it, it would be a completely unsafe zone. And they wouldn't enjoy themselves, they would drum down me, and they might see a patrol longer than they needed to. So those are some pieces of that. And so if I can find that slide, I will share it with you. And at the end of the day, I brought a bunch of brochures from all the different countries that I visited. And you feel free to flip through them and look at kind of see what other people are doing with different stuff. Every country brings something a little bit different with those pieces. So those are our teaching, what we consider teaching skills. How do you manage yourself through those 6 pieces? As professional skiers and riders, we've been doing this for a while. This isn't super new. It's just possibly worded or framed a little bit differently. If you look back at scorecards of level 1 through 3 and RMT or trainer cred or kids of cred or CS1, CS2, all those things over all the years, when you look at how people evaluate in teaching, a lot of these pieces live on there. Did you make a goal for the group? What were the what were the activities you chose? How did you pace them? How much information did you give them? You give them so much information they couldn't even move because they're so cognitively crippled. They're like, oh, this. What are we doing to do a high five again? Right? And it gets too bit up. So we've seen this, but hopefully that these pieces now that they're published, we can consolidate, make it more consistent, and then across our country, hopefully you'll start seeing scorecards that look a whole lot more similar. And that would be pretty cool. As one of the 3 C's of our organization right now, consolidation or 2 of them, consolidation and consistency. If we can consolidate into a little bit more normalized evaluation piece, along with having everybody do the same thing, that would really make for consistency, because there's nothing worse than like, well, where I'm from, we do this, and that's just not what we should be doing. Like, well, why not? So hopefully we'll be more consistent. And then this piece, who has a new teaching snow sports manual? Really? Come on, it's so good. It's so good. And part of what I want you to know is this is in it. This is our teaching learning cycle that Ellen and Rob have modified, and they definitely, they spent time with people from around our country, so it wasn't in a silo done. It was done from across our country and with many different opinions. But I like this a lot, and I like this so much that on the CS side of things, for those who are on the kids, the new manual will have this as a replacement to play drill adventure summary, because I believe we can use this to accommodate all people, and I believe it makes a lot of sense. But you have welcome introduction to bring people into your learning environment. Get to know who they are, right? People skills. Get to know who they are. How are you going to, and then the other teaching part of that is how are you going to make an environment where people are more willing to get to know one another? How are you going to get to know, what's your name? Jeannie. How is somebody going to get to know Jeannie here and get to know all about her and all that, and then be able to be vulnerable enough to try something new with Jeannie? Right? We start that process right at the beginning. Like your first impression goes a long, long ways. And if you blow your first impression, it's a long hike up that ladder to get back into the graces of the people that you're with. Okay? And then we come in here, and then we assess the students. This happens on a lot of phases. And it doesn't actually happen after welcome introduction. It probably happens as you watch them walking up the stairs, dragging all their stuff, trying to get to you with their boots flapping open, or the boots super tight and they don't figure out how to move their ankles in their boots, or they're snowboarding or whatever it may be. You start evaluating people right away. You're looking at their gear, you're looking at the way they move, how they walk. You're already starting to assess, like, oh man, this person is super cool. You know, it's like, hey, the first time a cruises up right in their boots and they're carrying their skis. You're like, oh man, this is gonna be great. You play hockey? Yes. So we do that. We have observations. Then we have a verbal break. You know, we listen to what they say. And more than what we're trying to get on the physical side of things when people talk is we're trying to get their effective in their physical sides, right? We're trying to get, cognitive and effective, sorry. Get their cognitive effective sides. Like, what do they know about the sport? How do they think? How are they going to process information? How do I start this lesson? What are some assumptions I can make to get things going? Right? And that's through that verbal thing. You know, you have people walking in and like, you ever skied before? Nope. Perfect. That one's easy. You're going over there. You're level 1. Yeah. Okay. Well, why do you ski? You start giving them the quiz down. I love skiing on blacks. Yeah. Where at? You know? So happens when you're in Colorado. Yeah. Where? I ski on blacks. Okay. All the time, or because people drag you there? Right? What's that underlying answer in there? And you're trying to get their understanding, what they want, what their motivations are, all that. Okay? And you can spend quite a bit of time, and this is always continuous. This is continuously happening throughout the entirety of your lesson. And as you slide over this way, you're going to start getting them moving. And then you do some confirmations. Okay, they said this. Now let me watch. Right? And I'm going to spend some time observing and watching them move. Watching them interact with other people in our group. How are they interacting? Are they on their own? Are they hanging out over there? Are they part of the group? What's going on? And then some stuff with me disengaged from them and them being themselves. And I'm going to make some assessments there. And then from that, I can bring those assessments to the group and be like, okay, you said you want to do these things. You want to ski some more blacks, you want to learn how to ski, do some bumps. As I see you ski, you're making a parallel turn. It seems to be a kind of a one-dimensional parallel turn though. It's kind of the same turn everywhere we go. And when we get in bumps, you're going to have need a little more versatility. Or, you know, and then from that, I can give them a little question. Would you be okay if? And I can lay out some options for it. Right now, I've collaborated. Remember that fundamental? We've collaborated on some goals and desires for the lesson. They're probably going to come in with their overarching goal, and I can probably slide in some objectives in there to get into that goal. I can get some small benchmarks. As I get halfway along the way, I'm going to take this little step and this little step. We're going to get some versatility in turns, so you can make a smaller one and a bigger one. And you can skid, you can do some pivot slips, and maybe have some pieces that when you get in those bumps, you're not necessarily crushed and completely dictated by the bump, but you can have some ownership. Come around and create experiences. And the create experiences is the neat piece, and I like the verbiage in there. I was trying to get them to be like, can we just say create experience in the middle, and all of that lives inside that? And they didn't go for it. But anyway, we're going to create some experiences. And as we create the learning experience, it's not always, can you create a super experiential piece for somebody to go out there and go into the woods and figure out how to live in the woods just because you want them to go hang out and live in the woods. Some people need a lot more guidance. And so when we get into this experiential learning, this creating experiences piece, people without a lot of background knowledge or knowledge of our sport are going to need a lot of information. They're going to need a lot more direction probably. Not all of them, but some of them might need a lot more direction. And then as you move through and people have some different things that you can draw upon or background knowledge, you can allow them to work within that background knowledge and present more of a guided discovery or problem solving scenario where they have some material that they can work with to get you somewhere. Not to say that you can't do a guided discovery for somebody the first time they've ever skied. But I was just saying that just because we put experience in here doesn't mean that you can't go out there and do some command teaching, because it's still super relevant for many people. And then we got guides and practice. The most underutilized part of every teaching cycle I've ever seen. Right there. How many of you are like, you see Matt Boyd make a parallel turn, and you're like, all right, parallel turns, go to bumps. Right? You see somebody do what you've been working on forever and ever and ever, and you get an anchor that, like, you did it, that's it. That was the parallel turn we've been trying to do for so long. They don't own that parallel turn. They've risen to a point where they can now perform it. We don't know if they even know how they did it, or have ownership of it, or any of that. And so we got to spend time here letting them develop that. Learn all the different varieties of making a parallel turn. How can I learn laterally on that? How can I get small parallel turns and big parallel turns in the slush at the bottom of this mountain, parallel turns up top where it's all wind blown and super soft and wintry. Like, that's a really big environment change that they need to figure out how to use that new parallel turn in. Use practice a lot. Let people repeat things, try things over, and explore. Don't let the excitement of making sure somebody gets that next level or that next step. It's like, you got this, all right, we're doing the next one. Overtake their ownership of what they've learned. Excuse me. And then from that, we can hop back in here and keep this cycle going on over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. In a day, in a year, in a lifetime, however that may be, depending on what the main goal or experience that the person's trying to come out with. But let's say at the end of your lesson, you want them to be able to come back in here and be able to share what they know. You want them to review what they gained out of this lesson. What are they walking away with? And it's a chance for you to not, you're obviously, hopefully you're checking for understanding throughout. But your chance to be like, okay, when you put it in your own words, does that sound accurate enough for you to walk away with? And it's something that if you are trainers in this room, I highly recommend that you check in with that. Like, you let people tell you at the end of your clinic what they're walking away with in their words, for you to help modify or maybe even adjust some of the words in their language. Because sometimes people say stuff, you're like, actually that's not it. That's not what I was hoping you would get to. Can you look at it more like this? Right? And that's in that review part. And then preview is like, let them know what's the journey ahead of them look like. What are those small objectives that you can reach that are attainable and make you feel like you're successful? And where's the end goal? Where are we hitting the finish line at to achieve this, right? So that's in the teaching source manual. You can get it digitally, not to sell it or anything, but it's awesome. You can get it digitally or a hardback or both. And there's some great media that accompanies it. Rob Sogard, Alan's partner, did a lot of voiceovers on stuff, and I think he did a very talented job. Thanks to Alan for writing the script. But that's in that. And then what else we got here? So those. Okay, so that's what we presented. That took about 40 minutes at NRC, and then we had quite a question and answer period. And it felt like at NRC when we presented this, that it was a piece of like, here's where we're at, this is stuff we've been doing. But the big piece is like, here's how we here's the difference, like these are teaching, and then these are people, because the people skills were very attention grabbing. A lot of people had questions like, really, what are you going to do with that? How is that going to work? And we needed to present like some of the differences. What is different between the people and teaching parts of this, and why do we think that we have a whole our people's skill part that we're going to try and coach people towards and develop personalities and eventually possibly evaluate. And that was the question that I got most of the time from other countries was, hey, that's a great idea. How are you going to evaluate that? And I'm like, that's a great question, because we don't know yet. And we got to work on it, So hopefully a lot of you know that we're working with Penn State. And with our partnership with Penn State, we're working on creating learning outcomes, and that's also creating consistency across all of our divisions. At level 1, what are the outcomes that need to happen? What are the learning outcomes, and how is that coming? When we create learning outcomes for people skills, that will lead us and guide us towards, okay, here's what we can expect out of people. And then we'll have to work on how we're gonna frame that evaluation. What are we gonna, how are we gonna have it that I can make a comment about somebody's people skill? You know, and it might look as simple as, when you created the goal for your, like at a level 3 exam, the three of us are together and we're skiing, and now I'm up, and now I gotta coach these two, Janet. Jeannie, oh, Jeannie in the bottle. Okay, so, we're in a lesson, and I've watched them skiing for half the day so far, because I didn't go first, because no way. But, so I watched them ski, and I jump in, okay, all right, girls, here's what we're gonna do. Both of you have this problem, we're gonna do this, and here's how I'm gonna fix you. Right, and I go out and I do this great progression to modify possibly short race performance turns with these two ladies. And at the end of the day, as the examiner, Ellen walks up and she's like, so, that was a great progression. That was a really good development of motor skills for that. But, how did you get their input on where you chose to make that objective? How did you find out about what they wanted, and what did you do? So that's an example of how we might evaluate other people's skills. What did you do to find out, like, what do you want to learn tonight? Do you want to do short performance turns? Because you might not. You might, I'm so over groomer skiing right now, I just want to go ski bumps and go ski on some steep, ungroomed terrain. I want some winter soft snow. And if I didn't ask you or communicate with you and develop any type of a relationship, that's a people skill that we might be able to evaluate. That didn't exist. Right? So that's an easy pass fail. How we're going to put a 1 through 6 on that, I don't know yet. But there's kind of an example of what that might look like in the future.